The twin suns of the Veralia system shone down on the grand city of Zalaris, their light glinting off the towering spires and polished streets. At the heart of the city, the elite governor of the planet, Lysera Vathan, stood on the balcony of her palace. Known across the galaxy for her sharp mind and strict rule, Lysera had always been untouchable. Her subjects feared her, and even her closest advisors tread carefully, knowing one wrong word could bring swift consequences. She was powerful, commanding, and distant, yet behind her stern eyes lay a secret, a soft spot that few had ever seen, inside. The palace Lysera's daughter Mara moved slowly through the halls. Mara had been born with a disability that made her legs weak, and she had never been able to dance like other children. She watched the world from a quiet corner, her large eyes filled with curiosity but also sadness. The palace was filled with opulence, yet it felt lonely to her. Even her mother, wrapped in duties and power, struggled to reach her heart. The city outside was full of life, but Mara's world remained small, quiet, and isolated on this particular morning. The usual stillness of the palace was broken by the arrival of an unexpected guest. A human, a species rarely seen by the elite aliens of Xylaris, had come to the palace. Humans were considered fragile, unpredictable, yet oddly persistent. This one, tall and confident, walked through the grand entrance without fear. Guards tensed, ready to stop the intruder, but something about him made even they hesitate. There was a calm in his stride, a curiosity in his eyes, as though he understood the weight of the palace's walls, yet refused to be intimidated by them. Lysera watched. From above, her expression unreadable. Why would a human come to her palace uninvited? What business did they have with her, with Mara? The human made his way toward the inner chambers, moving with a purpose that caught even the seasoned guards off guard. There was no fear, no hesitation, just a strange, quiet confidence. Lysera's curiosity was piqued. She had faced threats, rebellions, spies, and diplomats, but she had never seen one like this in the palace's central hall. Mara peeked from behind a tall column. She had heard whispers of the human visitor, but had never seen one so close. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. There was something different about him. Something gentle. She had spent her life hidden away, yet this human seemed to notice the small things, the way she lingered, the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her dress. It was almost as if he saw her, truly saw her. For the first time, the human paused, glancing around the hall. His eyes met Mara's for a brief moment, and he smiled. It was a small gesture, but it carried warmth that seemed foreign in the cold palace. Mara felt her heart flutter. Could someone outside her world care for her in this way? Lysera, watching silently from above, felt a twinge of unease. The human's attention on Mara was deliberate, respectful, and yet somehow challenging to her. Authority. Who was this human, and what did he want with her daughter? The tension in the palace was thick. Servants and guards exchanged nervous glances, unsure how this interaction would unfold. The human began speaking, his voice calm but firm, carrying words that seemed to ripple through the hall. "I have come to help," he said simply. The words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. Lysera's jaw tightened. Help? Could a human truly aid her daughter? Or was this a trap, a ploy to undermine her rule? Mara's eyes widened, a flicker of hope sparking inside her chest. For the first time in years, she imagined a world where she could move freely, laugh, and dance. The human stepped closer, kneeling down so his eyes were level with hers. "You can dance," he said softly. "I can help you." Lysera felt a chill run down her spine. The governor, strong and unyielding, had never been challenged like this. Her daughter, silent and withdrawn, had finally drawn attention not for her weakness, but for her potential. A story was about to unfold, one that would shake the walls of the palace and perhaps even the hearts of aliens across the galaxy. And at that moment, Mara realized that her life was about to change forever. The human was not just a visitor, he was the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, the palace hummed with its usual rhythm, but something felt different. Even the guards noticed it, the quiet tension, the stolen glances toward the hall where Mara usually stayed hidden. Word of the human visitor had spread quickly, though the palace staff whispered carefully. No one dared speak too loudly about him. A human, daring and calm, had entered the palace and seemed determined to reach the governor's daughter. Lysera Vathan sat alone in her private chambers, staring at the golden walls but not really seeing them. Her mind churned with unease. She had dealt with threats before, rebellions, spies, even assassination attempts, but this human was different. There was no aggression in him, no hidden weapons. Yet he had walked through her palace with the confidence of someone who belonged. More troubling, he had made Mara's eyes light up, a reaction Lysera had not seen in years. The human did not. Wait. He was already moving toward the central hall again, where Mara usually stayed near the tall columns, watching the world pass by. This time, he carried a small box. Mara peeked from behind her hiding spot, curiosity mixing with fear. The box was simple, unassuming, yet it held a promise she had never dared to imagine. Lysera followed silently from the balcony above, her arms crossed tightly. She did not like the idea of a human interacting with her daughter. Humans were fragile, unpredictable, and to an alien elite like her, sometimes reckless. Yet something about the human's determination made her pause. He did not seem to want power, wealth, or status, only something far more dangerous in her eyes. A chance to change her daughter. The human knelt on the polished floor and opened the box. Inside were a few colorful ribbons and a small music device. Mara's eyes widened. She had seen ribbons before, but never for her. And the music. It was soft and gentle, unlike anything she had heard in the palace. Her heart began to beat faster, a flutter she had almost forgotten existed. "You can dance," the human said again, kneeling closer, keeping his voice low and calm. "I can show you. Step by step. If you want, I can help you move your legs. Just a little at first." Mara hesitated, glancing at the towering columns and the palace walls. She had spent her life careful, silent, unseen. What if she failed? What if she fell and everyone laughed? The thought of embarrassment made her retreat a step further. But then the human smiled gently. There was no pressure, only patience. That tiny difference, the calm confidence of someone who truly believed in her, pulled Mara forward. Lysera, still observing from above, felt a strange sensation she did not recognize. Her chest tightened, and for a moment she forgot herself. Could a human really help her daughter in ways she never could? Her mind raced, torn between authority and something new, something she had long ignored. Hope. The human began with small movements. He guided Mara's hands to hold the ribbons, showing her how to move her arms lightly. Then he encouraged her to shift her weight, just slightly, from one foot to the other. Mara wobbled at first, her body stiff and unsure, but the human's steady words made her try again. Step by step, her confidence grew. She glanced at the human, her eyes shining with a hint of excitement she had never felt before. From the balcony, Lysera's lips pressed into a thin line. She could not believe what she was seeing. Her daughter, who had avoided movement for years, was trying. Dancing in her own small way. A strange mixture of fear and pride rose within her. Could she allow this? Could she trust this human? And more importantly, why did she feel moved? The palace hall remained silent, save for the soft music from the device and the gentle shuffle of Mara's tentative steps. Every tiny success, every careful motion, seemed to carry weight beyond the room, beyond the palace. For the first time, Lysera realized that humans were different. They did not rely on power, fear, or status. They relied on belief, patience, And heart. By the end of the session, Mara was smiling, a small tentative smile, but a smile nonetheless. The human nodded approvingly, and Mara's eyes sparkled as if she had discovered a secret world for the first time. Lysera watched her, heart conflicted. This human, so fragile yet so strong, had done what no alien advisor, no teacher, no court official had ever achieved. He had reached her daughter's heart, and somewhere deep inside, Lysera knew this was only the beginning. The next day, the palace seemed quieter than usual. Even the guards noticed a tension in the air, a silent anticipation that something unusual was about to happen. Mara sat in her usual corner, fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Her heart pounded as she thought about the human who had entered her life. The memory of his kind smile and gentle words lingered like a warm light in the cold palace halls. She had spent her entire life hidden, moving carefully so no one would notice her. But now the possibility of moving freely, even just a little, was real. The ribbons he had given her yesterday were neatly folded beside her. She picked them up, turning them over in her small hands. Could she really do it? Could she really dance? Outside, the human approached again, calm and steady as always. He carried no gifts this time, only a quiet determination. His eyes sought Mara's immediately, and she felt that familiar flutter in her chest. Slowly she stepped forward, a little hesitant, a little unsure. The human knelt down to her level, his voice soft and patient. "Today we try something new," he said. "Just a few steps. I'll be right here with you. You're not alone." Mara nodded, and for a moment, silence fell over the hall. The music started, a gentle flowing melody that filled the space with warmth. The ribbon swirled lightly in her hands as the human guided her small movements. Step by step, he encouraged her to shift her weight, to feel the rhythm, to trust herself. At first, her legs shook. Her balance wavered, and she felt the familiar fear creeping in, the fear of failing, of being laughed at, of disappointing her mother. But the human's steady gaze never left her. His presence was grounding, almost magical in its simplicity. "You can do this," he whispered, "just one step at a time." Mara took a deep breath. She lifted one foot, then the other, slowly moving to the beat. Each movement was small, careful, but it was movement nonetheless. For the first time in her life, she felt the joy of motion, the thrill of possibility. She glanced at the human, and he nodded, smiling. That smile was a quiet promise that she could go further, that she could overcome the fear that had kept her frozen for so long. Lysera, standing in the balcony above, watched silently. Her heart was a storm of conflicting emotions. She had always believed that her daughter's life would be one of careful control, limited freedom, and constant protection. Yet now, as she observed Mara's tentative steps, she felt something she had never felt before: awe. Could a human really teach her daughter to dance? Could such a fragile being hold such strength, patience, and understanding? The human encouraged Mara to spin slowly, guiding her hands and arms with gentle touches. Mara stumbled once, but instead of panic, she felt laughter bubbling up from inside her. It was a soft, shy sound at first, then louder as she realized she could do it. The ribbons twirled with her movements, catching the light and painting the hall with color. Mara's eyes sparkled like stars, and even the human's face brightened at her success. The guards and palace staff, watching from a distance, exchanged whispers. They had never seen Mara like this, alive, radiant, and confident. And they had never seen the human accomplish something that seemed impossible. The walls of the palace, usually cold and unyielding, seemed to soften just a little. Lysera's expression softened as well, though she tried to hide it. Her daughter was smiling, laughing, and dancing, guided by the hand of a human she barely understood. There was something in that sight that shook her, something beyond power, politics, and duty. It was raw, simple, and undeniable. The human spirit. By the end of the session, Mara was spinning freely, laughing, and moving with a grace she had never known. Her small victories filled the room with energy, a light that even Lysera could not ignore. The human knelt beside her, offering praise, encouragement, and quiet admiration. Mara's eyes met his, shining with trust and joy. From her balcony, Lysera realized that this was more than a lesson in dance. It was a lesson in hope, in courage, in the extraordinary power of humans to touch lives. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that the story had only just begun. The sun hung low over the city of Zilyrus, casting long shadows across the palace halls. The day felt different, charged with quiet anticipation. Mara stood near the central hall, her ribbons clutched tightly in her hands. Her legs trembled slightly, but there was a spark in her eyes that had never been there before. She had taken her first real steps yesterday, guided by the human, and it had changed something inside her. The human entered quietly as always. His presence was calm, yet commanding in its own way. Mara felt her chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with excitement. Today was a new challenge. He wanted her to try dancing without leaning on him too much, to find her own rhythm. Lysera watched again from her balcony. Her arms were crossed, but her mind was restless. She had spent her life in control, ruling with precision and strategy. She had never thought that a human could make her daughter smile, let alone move freely. The thought unsettled her. What if Mara succeeded? What if the human really could teach her something that no alien, no teacher, no advisor ever could? The human knelt beside Mara, holding her hands gently. "You can do this," he said softly. "I'll guide you, but this time, try to follow your own steps. Trust yourself." Mara nodded, though her stomach was a knot of nerves. She wanted to prove she could do it, but what if she fell? The music began, flowing softly from the small device the human had brought. The melody was gentle, yet filled with energy that seemed to wrap around the room. Mara took a deep breath and lifted one foot, then the other. She swayed, almost unsteady, but the human kept her balance with subtle support. Step by step, she began to move in rhythm, her confidence growing with every motion. Lysera's chest tightened as she watched. Mara was dancing not perfectly, not yet, but dancing with joy. Something inside the governor stirred, a strange warmth she had long buried under duty and discipline. Her daughter's laughter echoed in the hall, pure and unguarded, and for the first time, Lysera felt the weight of what she had been missing. The human encouraged Mara to spin slowly. The ribbons followed her movements, fluttering like colorful wings in the sunlight. Mara stumbled slightly but caught herself, and a small laugh escaped her lips. The human smiled warmly, his eyes shining with pride. "See? You can do it. You're stronger than you think." The hall seemed to hold its breath. Servants and guards watched from the sides, astonished by the sight. They had never seen Mara so alive, so radiant, so free. And they had never seen a human achieve something that seemed impossible. Even the cold, polished walls of the palace could not contain the energy that filled the room now. Lysera's face remained calm, but her mind raced. Her daughter, her precious Mara, was smiling and dancing, guided by a human. And yet, it was more than dancing. It was courage, trust, and hope. It was a lesson in patience and humanity, something Lysera had never considered important until now. The human was teaching Mara to move. Yes, but he was also teaching the governor something far greater. That humans were extraordinary, capable of inspiring even the most guarded hearts. Mara's confidence grew. She spun faster, the ribbons flying with her movements. The human clapped gently, offering encouragement without taking control. "You're amazing," he said. "Keep going. Feel the music." Mara's laughter rang louder now, a sound that seemed to touch everyone in the hall. Even Iradat, and then something unexpected happened. Mara lifted her arms, twirled, and for a moment, she danced completely on her own. The human let go, standing back with a proud smile, giving her the space to shine. Lysera's breath caught in her throat. Her daughter, her shy, quiet, fragile daughter, was dancing. Not just moving, but dancing with joy, confidence, and freedom. Lysera's eyes stung. She turned her gaze away briefly, unwilling to let anyone see the tears that threatened to fall. She had always believed in control, in strength, in rules. But here, in this hall, guided by a human, she saw something more powerful than authority. She saw hope. She saw courage. She saw the extraordinary power of the human spirit. The music slowed, and Mara came to a gentle stop. She laughed, a sound full of pride and happiness. The human knelt beside her again, his hand warm on hers. "See, you did it. You found yourself." And in that moment, Lysera knew that nothing in her life, no power, no title, no command could compare to the wonder she felt watching her daughter dance. The story of hope, courage, and humanity was only beginning, and the palace would never be the same again. The day had arrived when Mara's dancing would no longer be confined to the palace hall. Word had spread quietly among the palace staff, and curiosity filled the corridors. Even the elite advisors whispered, wondering what the human visitor had been teaching the governor's daughter. The hall was larger today, more open, with sunlight streaming through the high windows. Guards stood at attention, their eyes wary, while servants tried not to show their anticipation. Mara sat quietly, her small hands clutching the ribbons. She was nervous. Though she had practiced in private, today she would dance where others could see her, perhaps even the public. Her heart raced as she thought about the people who might watch. What if she failed? What if everyone laughed at her? But then she remembered the human's words. "You can do it, step by step. I'll be here with you." The human appeared in the hall, calm and confident, as always. He knelt beside Mara, his voice soft but firm. "Today you dance for them. Not perfectly, just you. Show them what you can do." Mara nodded, inhaling deeply. She could feel the tension in the room, but also a strange excitement building inside her. Lysera watched from the balcony above. Her eyes were fixed on her daughter, but her mind was a storm. She had never imagined her daughter performing before anyone, especially not in public. What if something went wrong? What if the crowd laughed? She clenched her fists, fighting the unfamiliar emotion rising in her chest. Pride mixed with fear, and before she could stop it, a single tear escaped. She quickly wiped it away, pretending to be indifferent. The music began, a gentle, flowing melody that filled the hall and echoed against the walls. Mara lifted her ribbons and began to move. At first she hesitated, her steps small and careful, eyes flicking to the human for reassurance. He smiled, nodding slightly, and Mara felt a surge of courage. Slowly, she moved with a rhythm, swaying and stepping as she had practiced. The audience watched in silence. Servants, guards, and even a few visiting dignitaries were captivated. They had never seen Mara like this, alive, radiant, and free. Each small movement she made seemed to light up the room. The human guided her gently, letting her take the lead, offering support only when she faltered. Step by step, she gained confidence. The fear that had held her back for so long began to melt away, replaced by joy. Lysera's heart raced. She couldn't look away. Her daughter, fragile yet determined, was dancing for the first time where anyone could see. And it wasn't just movement, it was courage, trust, and hope made visible. The human's influence was clear, yet it wasn't the human who shined. It was Mara. He had simply shown her the way, and she had found her own strength. Mara twirled, the ribbons flowing like streams of color around her. Her laughter, soft at first, grew louder, echoing through the hall. The audience gasped, some whispering in awe, others smiling at the pure beauty of the moment. Lysera's chest tightened. She had expected control, fear, and order, but what she saw was far more powerful: joy, freedom, and the extraordinary potential of her own child. Then, without warning, Mara spun faster, her balance perfect, her movements graceful. She danced fully, confident, radiant. The human stepped back, letting her shine entirely on her own. Lysera's eyes filled with tears she could no longer hide. The elite governor, known across the galaxy for her cold, commanding presence, felt something unfamiliar, overwhelming pride and emotion. She pressed her hands to her face, unable to hold back her tears. The crowd noticed. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the hall. No one had seen SCI-FI move like this, not in years. Her body shook slightly, her shoulders trembling, and for the first time, her daughter's triumph was mirrored by her own raw, unguarded emotion. Mara, sensing her mother's attention, glanced up and smiled. Her smile widened as she saw the tears. In that instant, a bond deeper than any palace rule or title formed between them. It was trust, love, and understanding, all sparked by the courage of a human who had shown them both that hope and strength could exist in ways they had never imagined. The music slowed, and Mara came to a gentle stop. The hall erupted into soft applause, not for the human, not for the palace, but for the human spirit reflected through her daughter. Lysera descended slowly from her balcony, tears still glistening, and for the first time embraced her child publicly. It was a moment no one in the palace would ever forget, and as Mara laughed, still glowing from her performance, Lysera realized something extraordinary. Humans had a gift not just for survival, but for inspiring, for awakening courage, and for teaching even the most powerful beings what it truly meant to hope. The palace hall was still buzzing with whispers and awe from Mara's performance. Guards and servants who had never imagined seeing the governor's daughter move with such grace exchanged astonished glances. But none of them could compare to the emotions boiling inside SCI-FI. She had always been a pillar of strength, commanding respect and fear across the galaxy. Today, though, she felt that strength melt, replaced by something entirely new. A flood of overwhelming emotion. Mara twirled once more, her ribbons catching the sunlight streaming through the tall windows. She laughed freely, completely immersed in the joy of movement. Her confidence had grown by leaps, and for the first time, she danced without hesitation, without looking to the human for guidance at every step. But she still felt his presence. Behind her, a quiet support, steady and reassuring. Lysera's hands trembled slightly as she clutched the balcony railing. The emotions inside her swelled, crashing like waves she could not control. Pride, fear, awe, gratitude all collided within her. She had spent years protecting her daughter, shielding her from failure, from the world, from disappointment. But watching Mara dance, she realized that this human had done something no amount of power or wealth could accomplish. He had unlocked Mara's potential, her spirit, and her joy. The human stepped back, giving Mara space, letting her shine. He did not seek praise. He did not demand attention. He simply watched, offering encouragement with a nod or a gentle smile. And that was when it happened. Lysera could no longer hold back. A single tear fell, quickly followed by another. Her shoulders shook as the flood of emotion poured out. The elite alien governor, known for her icy control and unyielding authority, was crying in public. The hall fell silent, eyes widened. Whispers stopped. Even the guards, trained to remain stoic, could not tear their gaze away from the powerful leader brought to tears. Mara stopped dancing, her head tilting slightly in surprise. She looked up at her mother, eyes wide. Then slowly a smile spread across her face. It was a smile filled with wonder, relief, and love. Mara ran toward Lysera, letting her small hands touch her mother's arms. "Mom, I did it," she whispered. Lysera bent down, gathering Mara into a protective embrace. Her tears wet Mara's hair, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was a moment of pure connection, of understanding that words could not express. The human knelt a few feet away, watching quietly, knowing that his task was not to take the spotlight, but to let Mara and her mother experience this triumph. The palace hall, usually a place of order and discipline, was alive with a different energy now. It was not fear that filled the air, but awe. Awe at the human spirit, at courage, and at the power of compassion. Even the most cynical advisors and guards felt it. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A human had bridged the gap between alien authority and a child's hidden potential, teaching a lesson that no weapon, law, or order could convey. Lysera's tears began to subside, replaced by a warmth. She had long denied herself. She looked at the human, truly looked at him for the first time. In his calm eyes, she saw patience, courage, and understanding. A being so fragile in appearance had accomplished what years of alien tradition, strict rules, and careful control could not. He had shown her daughter and her, the strength that came from belief, love and hope. Mara twirled once more, softly, this time letting her ribbons trail behind her. She laughed, her voice echoing through the hall like music, filling the spaces that had long been empty. Lysera held her close, whispering words she had never thought she would say aloud. Thank you for showing me. Her voice faltered, but the meaning was clear. Gratitude, awe, and love radiated from her in every word. The human stood quietly, nodding slightly. He did not seek recognition, for he had already achieved the most important goal. He had inspired courage, joy, and the extraordinary human spirit in two hearts that had never experienced it fully before. And in that moment, the palace walls seemed to shimmer with something beyond wealth or authority. They shimmered with hope, potential, and humanity itself. Lysera knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Mara had danced, she had triumphed, and a human had shown them both a truth that no alien tradition could ever teach, that hope, courage, and compassion are more powerful than any law, title, or weapon in the galaxy. The story had reached its emotional peak, and the audience, both in the hall and across the palace, felt it. It was not just a moment of dancing, but a moment of transformation, a moment that would be remembered for generations. The palace hall had finally quieted. The soft echoes of Mara's laughter and the gentle flutter of her ribbons lingered in the air. Guards, servants, and visitors alike stood silently, still processing what they had just witnessed. The elite. Governor Lysera Vathan remained kneeling with her daughter in her arms, tears streaking her face, yet her expression carried a warmth no one had seen before. She had been transformed, not by power or fear, but by courage, kindness, and the extraordinary human spirit. Mara sat on her mother's lap, her small hands still holding the ribbons. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, filled with the excitement of what she had achieved. She glanced at the human, who stood nearby, calm and quiet. Mara's eyes sparkled with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, she whispered. Softly. The human simply smiled, a humble, patient smile. You did it yourself, Mara, he said gently. I only showed you the way. The strength was always inside you. Mara's smile widened. For the first time, she truly believed it. She had discovered something precious, the courage to try, to move, to shine. Lysera rose slowly, holding Mara close. She looked around at the people in the hall, guards, servants, advisors, even visiting dignitaries, and realized something extraordinary. Today had not just been about dancing. It had been about hope, inspiration, and the human capacity to awaken potential in others. She turned her gaze to the human. You've shown us something we could never have learned alone, she said, her voice steady despite the lingering emotion. Humans truly are remarkable. The human bowed slightly, not seeking praise. He had come to the palace with no intention of recognition, no desire for status or reward. His goal had been simple yet profound, to help a child, to spark courage, and to remind even the most powerful beings that hope and kindness were more potent than any rule or law. And in that goal, he had succeeded beyond measure. Mara stood, the ribbons flowing around her, and danced again, this time for herself, for the joy she felt in her heart. The audience watched in awe, silent now, captivated by the innocence and bravery of a child who had overcome fear. Lysera's chest swelled with pride. She realized that leadership, power, and authority were nothing without compassion and understanding. Humans had a gift, the ability to inspire, to awaken, and to teach even the most disciplined and powerful beings lessons that authority alone never could. The governor turned back to the human. "Your presence here, it has changed everything," she said quietly. "Not just for Mara, but for me, for all of us." The human nodded, as if to say that the impact of kindness often spoke louder than words. Mara ran toward him, laughter filling the hall, and wrapped her small arms around his waist. "Thank you," she said simply, but with all the depth of a heart that had been opened. The human ruffled her hair gently, smiling. "You did it," he repeated, "and you'll do even more." As the sun began to set over the city of Xylaris, Lysera led Mara to the balcony overlooking the glowing streets. For the first time, the governor felt a quiet peace in her heart. The palace walls, once cold and strict, now seemed alive with possibility. Hope had entered their lives, sparked by an ordinary human with extraordinary courage and patience. That night, as the city lights shimmered below, Lysera realized the truth she had never truly understood. Humans, fragile as they may appear, possess a strength that transcends physical power. Their spirit, their ability to care, to inspire, and to uplift, could move even the most powerful beings to tears. In their courage, patience, and kindness, they carried the essence of hope itself. Mara fell asleep that night with her ribbons wrapped loosely around her arms, dreaming of the dances yet to come. Lysera stood by the window, watching the stars, thinking of the lessons learned. That strength is measured not by authority, but by compassion. That courage is often quiet and patient. And that humans, in their simplest acts of love and bravery, can illuminate the universe in ways no other species can. The human had quietly left the palace earlier, leaving behind a lasting impact that would resonate through generations. And though he was gone, his presence remained in Mara's laughter, in Lysera's newfound humility, and in the hearts of all who had witnessed the extraordinary moment when hope, courage, and humanity triumphed over fear. And in that quiet, glowing palace, one truth was undeniable: humans were extraordinary. Even in the face of alien authority, they could inspire, uplift, and teach the universe the true meaning of hope.